Okay, anytime.
You got some good background noise there. The most exciting things happening in the world today, I think, are in the energy field. One is we're seeing the development of renewable energy resources on a scale and at a rate that we've never seen before with conventional energy sources.
Yep.
For example, just some quick examples. The U.S. state of Texas, an oil state, now has 9,000 megawatts of wind generating capacity. If Texas were a country, it would be fifth in the world. It would be the United States, China, Germany, Spain, Texas.
Wow.
So it's really, really moving. And it's oil country. I mean, this is not an environmentally cutting-edge state. So that's interesting. And there's oil money going into wind now. And one of the reasons is the excitement, the realization that if you invest in an oil field, you know that after some decades the yield from the wells begins to decline and eventually you abandon it and have to find a new oil field. But what we have with wind is once you build that system, you've made that investment, it can basically last forever. I mean, obviously you have to replace the bearings and do maintenance, but the system will last as long as the earth itself, and that's an exciting realization. So with the energy online in Texas and another 40,000 plus megawatts under development, Texas will have, when these wind farms are completed, some 50,000 megawatts of wind generating capacity, which will be more than enough to satisfy the needs of the 24 million people living in Texas. So Texas, which has been an oil exporter for the last century, will now be a wind energy exporter. So that's an example of, I mean, the fact that this is happening in an oil state and in the South, in Texas, is, I think, interesting. The second example would be China. China is a latecomer to wind energy, but it was a decade behind Germany and Denmark and so forth. But in each of the last 5 years, China has doubled its wind generating capacity, starting from a small base. But in addition to that, they are now developing 7 wind mega complexes, which will have a total generating capacity of over 130,000 megawatts. That is, I mean, that's huge by any standard. It is. It's equivalent to 130 coal-fired power plants.
Wow.
It's like building another coal-fired power plant every week for the next 2.5 years. So it's not trivial.
Yeah.
Another example. This is in solar energy in Europe. While the European governments were preparing for the Copenhagen conference last year, a group of companies led by Munich Re Insurance, and including Deutsche Bank and Siemens and many other leading companies, had formed a consortium, the purpose of which was to develop the solar resources of North Africa and integrate, using solar thermal technology, to integrate that into a European North African grid that would incorporate the solar resources of North Africa, the wind resources of Northern Europe and the North Sea. And this could be potentially huge. And they will transmit the electricity with high voltage direct current undersea cables under the Mediterranean. But what's so exciting about this is the potential. I mean, it could one day be hundreds of thousands of megawatts, because, as the Algerians point out, they have enough harnessable solar energy in their deserts to power the world economy.
Wow.
I mean, it sounds like a mathematical error, but it's not. This basic point appears in the energy literature when it's noted that the sunlight striking the earth in 1 hour
Yep.
is
Yes.
enough to power the world economy
Right.
for 1 year.
Right.
So, I mean, this is just extraordinarily exciting. If I were to pick a fourth development in
Yep.
the energy field, it would be the emergence of a powerful grassroots movement in the United States to ban the construction of new coal-fired power plants. This has been an extraordinarily successful effort, and it has created a de facto moratorium on building new coal plants. Now that they've achieved that goal, they're moving into phase 2, which is to close existing plants. And there are now some, at least 30, maybe getting close to 40 coal-fired power plants in the U.S. now scheduled to close in the next few years to be replaced by natural gas or wind or by investments in efficiency. So we're seeing a fundamental change. And the interesting thing about this is that everyone focuses on Washington and the legislation, the climate energy legislation never seems to get passed. But the important things aren't happening in Washington. I mean, this is an amazing story, and the media has not fully realized yet what's happening. So those are some of the exciting things that are happening in the world that make me think maybe we can make it after all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we can now get Japan to focus on developing its geothermal energy resources and becoming the world leader in this area, then that would be a major contribution. There's a vacuum now in the geothermal area, unlike with wind, where some countries have stepped ahead: Germany, Denmark, the United States, China, and so forth. Or with solar, with Europe now and the U.S. and the Southwest. But with geothermal, there are no leaders, and we desperately need a leader. And it's a great economic opportunity in two ways for Japan. One, the idea of not having to import oil and coal, and two, the economic opportunities that come with leadership in a given area. I mean, as we're hearing a lot of talk now about energy technologies, and who the leaders will be, because the technological leaders will probably be the leaders in building the new energy economy. And I've been looking back at information technology to sort of see how this works. And with information technology, things like personal computers, the internet, these are U.S. originated technologies. And if you make a list of the top 20 IT companies in the world, I haven't done this, but I would guess 12 or 15 are probably U.S. It'll be Microsoft and Apple and Google and Facebook, and I don't even, Dell, I can't think of all of them, but the U.S. has clearly dominated this industry and benefited from it. So that's why I think Japan has such an enormous opportunity with geothermal energy, because of all the industrial countries, none other has the rich endowment that Japan does. That rich endowment can provide the economic foundation for developing an industry that could lead the world. And Japan could be building geothermal power plants all over the world.
Wow.
And particularly with the new technologies in this field that have actually come from the oil industry and trying to get oil out of old oil fields. A lot of that technology is ideal for geothermal energy. So these are some of the thoughts that come to mind as I think about these questions.
Right. So how can we accelerate these good, positive changes? Where can we find the leverage point, so to speak?
Well, the first thing is for people to know about them. I mean, some of us know about what's happening with wind in Texas or wind in China or the Desert Tech proposal in Europe or the success of the anti-coal movement in the United States. But not many people, I don't think most people do realize, how exciting some of these developments are, or even that they're happening. The anti-coal movement in the United States, there are two interesting things about it. One is coal is very unpopular in the United States. It does not have a positive image at all, despite the $40 million a year the coal industry spends talking about clean coal.